just for you. Welcome to Blog-vember, another day of tips. Our theme this year is tips for the DIY rock star. So I'm going to have you hold the bag and I'm going to reach in this time. Let's see, and it's probably going to be one for you like it was last time. Competing with yourself. What can you do to keep from competing with yourself?
I don't know about that one.
What do you mean?
Because that's all I do.
Okay.
So I use myself as motivation.
Okay. What do you mean?
I use myself for motivation for exercising. I use myself for motivation for everything that I do.
Okay.
So I normally don't compete with other people. I usually compete with myself.
Okay.
So usually if I hit, if I'm running and I run a mile at a certain speed and it's the fastest I ever run it, then for me that becomes a number to beat.
Okay.
And that will become, it's like, your personal record or whatever else. That becomes my number to beat.
Oh, wow.
It's not somebody else's number. It's usually my number that I'm more concerned about. It's so I'm constantly, I think, competing with myself. I'm constantly, if it's writing songs or doing things, I'm constantly trying to be better than where I was in the past.
I like that.
So
Actually,
that's really, for me, that's part of running my own race. I run a race that's appropriate for me.
Okay.
I can't run somebody else's race. I can't. That's why it's kind of difficult to compete with another person.
Yeah.
I don't know how to compete with someone in songwriting.
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Right.
I know for me, what my expectations are. How can I take where I feel like I've taken my writing to another level. I can feel like as a songwriter I'm getting lazy when I feel like I'm taking easy parts to finish stuff as opposed to pushing the boundaries.
Trying something
different. Something I haven't tried. Trying a different type of part instead of saying, okay, just go back to what you normally do.
Right.
So I started kind of getting in that mindset with bass lines in a way. So, I deliberately kind of ignore the notes when because if I play the guitar part, I know what I play. So I kind of try to deliberately ignore the notes.
Okay.
Meaning that I know exactly what I play.
Okay.
And try to do something a little bit out of the box.
Okay.
For the bass part, because sometimes it just follow what I did on guitar. It becomes too predictable and too easy to do that. As opposed to not knowing what I did on guitar and then just, trying to come up with something that would be a little bit different. That's not the automatic thing.
Okay.
And so it's the same thing with guitar. It's the same thing with keyboard. Sometimes I ignore the chords and I will layer chords on top of stuff, not really paying attention to or thinking about, I played an A and then I went to A. I try to stay away from that and just play. Just kind of play around and see where I find something that sounds good. And to me, that's a little bit more, I guess, freeing than kind of going to what's predictable. Because sometimes when I do what's predictable, I don't know, it leaves me a little bit empty.
Right, doesn't do anything for you because it's not exciting enough.
Right, it's too predictable, it's too easy, and it's like, I can finish it that way, but it's not doing anything for me. But anyway.
I kind of have a different view of the competing with myself, and I kind of do what you do, where I run my own race. However, to figure out my race, a lot of times I have to start by imitating or duplicating what I've seen somebody else do, since if I'm completely unfamiliar with the process.
No, and I get that. I mean,
so then,
that's part of learning, but
yeah. So the first time around, I may be trying to meet that expectation, and then I may find, okay, I did it that way. That was me starting out, but I've learned a little bit more, and so now I'm breaking from doing that.
Well, I guess I think about it as far as running. It's like if you ever ran a mile, if you decide to yourself, okay, I'm going to run a mile. How do you know how fast you can run it? I mean, you don't know.
No.
And so other people who may have run a mile probably ran it fast or slow or whatever than you, but you're just saying to yourself, my challenge is to see, can I run a mile?
Yeah.
You know, or sometimes, can I run 5 minutes?
But I'm saying the method. For me, it's the method. So I may use it's like a recipe.
No, I'm not.
I'll look at somebody else's recipe.
But we're talking two different things.
What do you mean?
In a way, because I'm not talking about how do you learn how to do something.
Okay.
So how you learn to do something is, you look at what other people's doing. So meaning that the way you learn to play guitar is you see other people playing guitar and you replicate what they do. You know, but that's different than competing with yourself.
Well, no, but so the first time I do it, I may not even know what myself is. I guess is what I'm saying.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's different from learning how to do something.
Okay.
So it's like a child. A child learns how to walk and all the rest of that kind of stuff from watching adults and all the rest of that. That's the way you learn to walk.
Right.
But competing against somebody with walking is a whole different thing. And I'm saying that's where, you're right. I think we all, when we're learning to do something, you replicate. But then at some point in time, when you start talking about competing, like if you're trying to compete against whoever.
Well, I'm going back to even our Blog-vember the first time through.
Right.
It was all, I'd seen people do it, and I just kind of threw stuff together, and we got through it. The second time through, I had a little bit more of a goal, but I had no process.
Right.
So.
But in a way, you're not competing against anyone.
Well, I am.
No, I'm saying, who are you competing against?
Well, myself from last time, because I wanted to make sure.
But that's my point.
But then I had to change the process completely.
No, I get that. But I'm still saying you're still competing with yourself and not an outside entity, even though you may have looked at outside entities to figure out how to do this in the first place.
Right.
So in order to set things up, that's why I was saying we're talking about two different things. Because that's one thing. The process or how you do it is one thing. And then there's the other part, which is, how do you actually go out and do that thing? And then when you're doing it constantly, what is your barometer for success? And a lot of times for people, if you're competing against other people, your barometer becomes, how am I doing against other people? Yeah. As opposed to, I know for me a lot of times my barometer for success is how am I doing against a standard I set for me. Okay. What did I expect? What were my expectations for what I can do? Yeah. And that becomes my barometer for success. Okay. So, the same thing for me, like running a marathon. My barometer for success was that I had to run across the finish line. So because I walked across the finish line and didn't run across it, for me, that was not success. Okay. So success was not merely finishing because I knew I felt in my heart I could finish. Okay. So I felt like that was like the ground floor. I'm saying whether I finished walking or whatever else, I knew I could just walk across the finish line. Right. And there was no doubt in my mind that I could do that. Right. The issue was, could I run across it? Okay. All right. So.
All right, what are your thoughts on competing with yourself? Is it an issue for you, or is it something that is not, and that is how you gauge your success? Drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Come back again tomorrow for another episode of Blog-vember for Gab and Jam Lights. And if you dig the vibe, be sure to
subscribe.
Here's wishing you love, peace, and
chicken.